Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Every day is a blessing. And I can tell you right now, every day is just something new. This landscape is just fraught with so many interesting stories. It seems like we're living in a time, feel like we're living in a time of revelation. Things that were hidden are being brought right into the light. And so when we last spoke, we were talking about Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old. It's hard to believe he was only 31, but this influencer, um, really a kingmaker at the tender age of 31 in really in the right wing circles and in American politics. He was killed yesterday while having one of his summits, one of his campus summits in Utah. And it was absolutely stunning to watch this unfold. 31 years of age, father, married, father of two children, a 3-year-old daughter, a 16-month-old son. Wow. And someone who many people said, well, he was an inflammatory figure. Let's just put it that way. He espoused many views that were racist, certainly racially insensitive, but when you got upon him, he was someone who people liked very much. He was someone who did not shy away from a discussion or a debate with you. He was someone who wasn't hostile. So even his opponents are very sad today because he really didn't make enemies, not on a personal level. And that's something for all of you to know. For all of the fights that you see on television and some of the fights that you see in the newspaper, that's not how people interact with each other. Really, it isn't. Let me just give you that piece right now. And so when I said yesterday that I'm praying for his family, for his wife, his children, his family, his loved ones, indeed, he's a Chicago guy. I meant that as a committed Christian, not a casual one, as a committed Christian. You know, we've been told to love even our enemies. And I don't see enemies, I see opponents. And certainly we opposed one another on fundamental issues. He said that Black people were far more violent than we are, far more violent than we are, um, just less of everything and more of bad things. He did that. That having been said, he became an enormously consequential figure in American politics. And the president, who has asked that all flags across the country and federal buildings be flown at half staff, is honoring him and apparently plans to honor Charlie Kirk with a Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. And he blamed his killing on political rhetoric generated by the left wing, which is extremely irresponsible. First of all, we don't know where this came from. As we were saying before we came on the air, when you look at the video, and I happened to bump into the video, I was just looking up the story once I got off the air yesterday. You saw a video of him talking, and you saw him getting shot. And it was a very clear video of him getting shot. And what is so stunning about his shooting is that it was a clean shot. It was one bullet to the jugular vein, and that was it. Not just in the neck. He didn't have a chance. So it makes you wonder what was going on because this person fired across a crowded field of thousands of people and shot him up underneath a tent. There's a little bit more to that than some political extremists. This is someone who even police, as they have been on television talking about this murder, they have said, oh, this was professional. This is someone who knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't hit anyone else but him. So let's talk about this. What is this? Because one of the things that I have noticed is the vitriol that has been directed at people who have said, let's have compassion for him and his family. That's been striking to me. But let's also look at his legacy and let's look at this toxic environment in which we find ourselves, in which people say things and they say things, they share things that are just irresponsible because the president should not have said, without it's certainly we don't have the information that someone from the left wing killed this man. That's not it. He is ignoring the Minnesota legislators who were killed and who were shot just a couple of months ago. It's a toxic environment in which we find ourselves. It's not the guns, it's us. So let's talk about this. I've got a tremendous panel with us today. Of course, Renee Criswell, I'm so glad you're back with us. Someone who has been active in the community, a retired teacher, but we're so glad that you are here with us today because I think this should be a people's conversation. This young man is someone of whom we are enormously proud, Pastor Jamar Boyd. That's right. We're so excited to have him here in Chicago at the Kenwood United Church of Christ. And Pastor Marshall Hatch, you've got to go to his cathedral, New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, the largest stained glass renderings of the civil rights martyrs of the United States. You got to go to that church and see it. But they also have some tremendous programs for our young people. And he and his son and his wife, his family, they are hard at work repairing and restoring our community. And then we've got the pastor of Empowerment Temple, AME, down there in Baltimore, Maryland. And of course, he's author of the book, Creating a Culture of Repair. He does a walk once a month from Baltimore to Washington, D.C., really making the case for reparations. So let me just get started because Pastor Boyd, we were talking before we came on the air about our HBCUs, about 7 or 8 of them that are on lockdown right now. There is also, we're being told that people who mention Charlie Kirk's name they're being doxxed in social media. There's a lot going on here, but what's happening at our Black colleges, Pastor Boyd?
Yeah, the reports are that credible threats were made this morning to Hampton University, Virginia State University, and Alabama State University. Administrators acted appropriately with appropriate authorities and officials and placed campuses on lockdown. That then led to another set of threats by 12:30, 1 o'clock this afternoon at the AUC in Atlanta, at Clark Atlanta, that then went to Spelman, then to Morehouse, and they subsequently went on lockdown as well. And so all of our campuses are on high alert. The belief is that this is potentially the first of a wave of backlash threats or retaliations that will happen on the campuses of HBCUs this fall, with an emphasis on the backlash, that this is not necessarily anything traceable to what occurred yesterday in Utah, but it is almost a signal or a warning that is hearkening back to something that we have not seen since the Jim Crow era in the South. And it is strategic that they would target campuses in Alabama, in Virginia, and in Georgia. Very strategic targetings of these campuses.
Well, you know what and when the president said that, when he put this on the left wing, I said, oh, wow, why would you do that? I mean, you don't need to stir this up in this moment. We need something else, Renee Criswell. So
Yes.
what did you think? I mean, and now that you see as a teacher, you see our students. I saw an exchange between a white professor at Clark Atlanta University. And Clark Atlanta University and Morehouse and Selman, they're all on the same campus. It's just one big campus, and they all take classes at each other's schools and all of that. This white professor, bless his heart, he was telling this black student, don't let these people instill fear in you or awaken fear in you. We've got your back. Come to class. They want you to relinquish your education. And she said, I'm concerned for my safety. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sheltering in place. I'm not leaving the dorm. I'm going to stay right here with all due respect. Renee.
Well, these are frightening times. We have a president who spreads hatred from the top. We have someone who was killed, and even though he might be a likable person in person, he has stirred up hatred amongst the people who follow him, and he was going to campuses to stir up hatred. And these are just some dark times, and perhaps it is the end of times. I don't know. I hope not, but there are a lot of evil forces in our midst right now. And I don't know. I'm a little bit shaken by what's going on, and I think students have. I think it's healthy to be fearful if you know there are credible threats out there, and I think there are credible threats out there. Who knows what's going to happen? I think they're trying to spark a civil war. Personally, take my country back. Proud Boys, stand back, but stand by.
Mhm.
Releasing all these people from January 6th, and not just the January 6th insurrectionists. Trump has released a lot of people from jail. He's pardoned people like the police officers in Washington, D.C., who had killed, I believe it was a young black man. He's pardoned people who are going to be part of his forces. He's summoning people to work for ICE. He's lowering the age, and he's putting out advertisements about being patriotic and, getting these illegal immigrants and kicking them out and offering bonuses to pick up people. And, they don't really have to be illegal citizens, but you can still go after them. We're living in some dark times, Santita, and it's healthy to be afraid so you can try to do something to protect yourself. You that's the way I feel about it.
Well, it's a lot, and I think that a lot of a lot of this is really to provide cover for some deeper issues that people have been talking about. There are a lot of things that have Americans bothered, and I think that they elected this president because they thought that he was going to take it to the establishment, and that's not what they're getting. But Pastor Hatch, what say you? Because we've had 24 hours and some change to look at this, and it's this the killing of Charlie Kirk has really, it's just really unsettled the country.
Good evening, Santita, to you and to the guest and to the audience. The tone of this dialogue on your show is it's so mature and accurate. These are dark times, and it was very reckless for the president to immediately stoke even more anxiety and vitriol with his opening remarks based on what happened to Mr. Kirk on yesterday. It has never been our faith tradition to celebrate this kind of violence and loss of life. We always, of course, send our condolences to the family of Mr. Kirk, and it's also fair to critique the role that he chose to play in the political discourse. But we simply have to, as your father has taught many of us, at this point we have to point people to higher ground and to find a common ground. These are very, very dangerous times. African Americans in particular, we have been marginalized to a degree that I don't think we even imagined we could be a year ago. And so we're almost back into the 1850s, which was very dangerous for Black people. And so we simply have to begin to think very strategically, very soberly. And then I think all of us with leadership platforms need to be careful that we don't become a part of the problem.
Mm. Pastor Boyd, what what do you make of this moment that in which we find ourselves? I'm waiting for Reverend Dr. Robert Turner to work it out so that we can bring him up very shortly. But I mean, what do you make of this moment? I mean, because it is, why do you think this has just shaken people so deeply? Is it his youth? Is it because of course you get someone who is really on the ascendant? I mean, this is one of your peers, you know, and this is not something that you expect to see. I think that watching, many of us have seen, um, saw the shooting, and I think many of us also, how ironic it was that he was talking about mass shootings when he was shot. There's just so much about this that is just so ironic and awful. What is it?
I think there are potentially three quick things that I could highlight to communicate why this may resonate in a way that it does, and or anger and amplify the sentiments that were already shared by various people. One is, this year alone, we've had 47 school shootings in this country.
Mhm.
24 of them were on college campuses, 23 on K through 12 school grounds, resulting in 19 deaths and 77 individuals, primarily children, that were injured. At the same time yesterday of this shooting, there was a mass shooting at a high school in Denver, Colorado,
Mhm.
that got no media attention, that got no persuasion by the mass market, and elected officials did not cease their agenda to focus on children. I think that is one critical area of anger by a large majority of people,
Mhm.
that the consistent proliferation of death of children is not a concern in this country. I think the second is those who are or were the target audiences of a Charlie Kirk were enabled by the stoking of flames that he did, by the debates and or the conversations he had, which amplified misogyny, bigotry, patriarchy, racism, sexism, the whole nine. But it was undergirded by a theological and ideological position that saw white Christians as superior, specifically white men as superior than other people. And so he stoked a Generation Z men. Those young men who are 18 to 25 were stoked. And so there is a visceral anger that they have at this moment, believing that either the country, the party, or black and brown people are the reason he is dead. And then there's the third category, which are those who are already targeted by Kirk's rhetoric or his debates, the likes of a Preston Meacham and others who were black men, black women, gay, queer, bi, trans, whatever their identities are or were, that were targeted by a Kirk, doxed by a Kirk. And so there is this tension within various communities of nobody's celebrating hoorah, nobody's doing that. But there is this tension in some aspect of, I'm not mourning someone that chose to target me to create a platform. Then there's the other side of this that says, this was our savior. Now he's our martyr. It is
Mhm.
our time to reclaim what was taken from us. We are at a point now where arguably either you on the left or you on the right. And the decision you make today is one that you will have to live with. And we see the audiences are trying to decipher, what decision do I make in this moment? You literally have teachers that I was educated by in the suburban public schools of Metro Atlanta and Gwinnett County, that are revealing their political, theological, and social ideologies on Facebook, calling Kirk a good Christian man with American values, while black and brown students that they taught are in the comments saying, I cannot believe I used to support, respect, and idolize you. I mean, we are literally at a deciphering moment, wheat from the tear. This is that type of moment. And I think it's important for black folks, specifically black Christians, do not confuse piety with practicing the faith.
Mhm.
And I am seeing a lot of self-pious performance on social media
Mhm.
instead of silent interrogation of what this moment means.
Well, you bring up the point. I mean, because this energy that we're giving to Charlie Kirk, and we should give this energy because what we're watching is because his death has a lot of meaning on a lot of different levels. But we don't have that for Gaza or the Sudan or Haiti or Yemen. We can just keep on the Mississippi Delta, Appalachia. We're losing people every single day. We are going to lose 50,000 people with the $1 trillion cuts to healthcare. And we've got Reverend Dr. Robert Turner from the Empowerment Temple, Mighty Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, Maryland. Of course, you know what? He's written this book, and it is fascinating. I think everybody needs to get it. He's talking about creating a culture of repair. He takes a walk from Baltimore to Washington once a month to help us to understand reparations. But as you are talking about creating this culture of repair, taking action on the road to reparations, I know we were talking about slavery and as this related to African Americans, Black people, but I think the whole country needs repair, restoration. There's just a lot going on here because now, I mean, you help me to understand what do you see because now we've got these Black colleges, and I think Pastor Boyd is going to be more Black colleges that are going to be on lockdown,
Yeah.
and I hope since this happened at a college that I don't want anything to befall our children or any more children. Uh, Reverend Dr. Robert Turner, what do you make of this killing and the reaction to it?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show once more. Always a blessed pleasure and delight to be with you and your listening audience. I feel, as has already been stated, murder is never something that we celebrate under any circumstance. I have to also state that this country is and has been one of the most violent nations in modern history. America has. And while I agree for the family, the Kirk family, it is impossible to be both violent and have the great amount of accessibility to weaponry that we have, that pretty much everybody in America is armed, and armed not with ricochets and bow and arrows. We got folks armed with assault military weapons. Mm-hmm. And it's naive for us to think that we can have this high level of violence that America birthed, right? And also with the access we have to high caliber tactical weaponry, and not have things like this happen on the regular. And it was stated not by me. I did not originate the phrase, but I agree. Malcolm X once said it's like the chickens coming home to roost. And when you send chickens out, when they leave, they eventually come back. And while America may not have intended for a white male to be attacked this way, it happened, unfortunately. We saw recently with white children being attacked in school. And we saw how many people came and poured out their love, sympathy, prayers, and support in Minnesota, which is terrible. But this is not new to America. It is not. In fact, you mentioned my walk. My next one is September the 15th. September the 15th, Monday. In remembrance of a violent act, right? That should be on a level even higher than 9/11, right? It happened before 9/11. September 15th, 1963. At 16th Street Missionary Baptist Church. Mm-hmm. Adam May Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robinson, and Cynthia Wesley killed in a bomb. planted by a Klansman, right? In church, going to Sunday school. Killer got off scot-free, right? And so if America had tapped down on violence in 1963, Minnesota never would have happened. The school shooting would never happen. If America had tapped down on violence in 1921 in Tulsa, where the largest race massacre in American history occurred, what happened to Christian Kirk probably would not have happened. But when you allow seeds like that to grow, when you allow seeds of violence, discord, hatred to grow, eventually the seeds will end up in your garden and they will choke your fruit. And that is what America has allowed to happen. And now those seeds have gotten their gardens, and now they're growing trees, not just grass. They're growing trees now, where you have violence at the churches and schools of predominantly white children. In Utah, you got more black folks on this Zoom, on this interview, StreamYard, than they got the whole state of Utah. Right? But this is what America has allowed to happen. But I hadn't heard once. I see the flags flown at half staff, but I haven't seen once the call from the president to send his National Guard there. Not once. Right? And so unfortunately, I am not surprised. I'm heartbroken for the family. But I am not surprised. And the deification of Kirk is astonishing. From people who these same folk demonized Trayvon Martin, right?
Wait, and said Dr. King was a bad guy.
These folks demonized George Floyd.
He said Dr. King was. I'm trying to get
Dr. King. They demonize our leaders when they get killed,
Whew.
right? But they're making this man a saint almost, right? Which is laughable. But now these same seeds they've allowed to grow and tear up our crops in Black America, in Tulsa, in Birmingham, in Black Wall Streets across the country, in police brutality. They've allowed those seeds to choke our produce and our crops. Now they've flown by the wind to another garden, and they're causing destruction. They're choking the fruit. They're choking the crops there. And it's what America has allowed to happen.
Reverend Jamar Boyd, he is younger than, he's the youngest member of the panel. And I say that in love and appreciation of another perspective that your generation would bring to this conversation, Reverend Boyd. Because Charlie Kirk was of another generation. I mean, this is a generation who, I was born in a colored women's hospital in Greensboro, North Carolina. I don't mind telling my age. I was born when my parents were in college. Praise God. I'm here. And my parents had 5 children. Jonathan said, I'm the first one of our parents' 5 children who was born with our full voting, with my full American citizenship. When my older brother and older sister were born, they didn't have the right to vote. There was no civil rights legislation, none of that. And he is absolutely right. This is, where does the thinking come from for the Charlie Kirk? This is your generation now, because he didn't get accepted to West Point, and apparently that was a turning point in his life. It was a crystallizing moment, and it really unmoored him that he could not get in. And I'm sure he ascribed him not getting a seat to one Black person who got in that he did not. They took his spot because the animus that he had toward Black people was just it was just quite awful. But help me to understand where that comes from, because this is your generation, and I need you to help me to understand him.
I think I'm still interrogating myself of the potential initial origins, but there are some potential possibilities. One is he's 31 years old, which is the same age I am, and our political formation occurred with a black president, as well as the emergence of the Tea Party and what became known as the New Era Republican Party that transformed itself on the same theological and ideological ethos that the party adopted, that was led by Jerry Falwell in 1984. And so, if you connect the dots to the evangelical rights disposition, that's the appropriate word I want to use here, their disposition in 1984 and 1988, that then doubled down itself in 1994 and 1996, and then placed itself as the communicators of righteousness and quote unquote appropriate Christianity in 2001 after 9/11. That is the theological and the political ideology that shaped and frames a Charlie Kirk. And so when the country then takes on quote unquote this performative post-racial posture politically with the election of Obama, the party, the Republican Party, stokes the claims that this was stolen from us. This was taken from us. An illegitimate black man who is not a fully American citizen is not occupying the highest seat of power. When you have then Mitch McConnell come out and say, we will not work with this president on day one, that political ideology is framing the mind of then a 14, 15, 16-year-old Charlie Kirk. You fast forward to the Trayvon Martins, to the Tamir Rice, to the Sandra Bland, and what was occurring when I was in college. And Charlie Kirk did not go to college. He did not complete college. He dropped out of a community college. So it is this political stoking and ideology and theology that framed itself arguably more than likely by a Gen X generation that raised him, his parents, that was evident in a Reaganomic kind of way, with the evangelical parties of a Jerry Falwell and what that was of the Southern Baptist Convention and how intricate they were in the Republican Party. And then what that does for it at the end of the day is create a generation, millennials and Gen Zers, that attach themselves to that same ideology. And then I don't think what a lot of people are paying attention to, and we talked about this at the very beginning before we got on, Charlie Kirk understands or understood what the political and ideological left fails to understand consistently. The most impressionable time of an emerging mind is their college years.
Yeah.
And if you can place yourself on a college campus and engage a mind between the ages of 18 to 25, when someone is forming their theological and political and social and cultural ideologies and understandings, you now create a subset that will sustain, quote unquote, a moment and turn it into a movement. And that's what Charlie Kirk understood. I may be performing or I may be telling the truth. They will never know. But if I can stoke them with the claims that I believe to be truth, I can now start a movement that can transform the political and the ideological framework and the culture of the times. And that's what he was doing. And how it's formed, how it's framed, it's contextual, it's circumstantial, it's not consistent for each person, but it is very similar. It's an ideological, right evangelical mindset framed around this conservative political ideology, and that people are taking something from us, taking the country from us. You can blame it on an identity or a set of people, which is what they did. And then now you start a movement, a retaliatory or a backlash movement of reclamation and possession. And that's what you get. You get a Charlie Kirk.
Well, you
And-
know what? I'm going to give this to all of you. Oh, please jump in. What were you about to say something, Pastor Hatch? Was someone about to?
I think Pastor Hatch or
Pastor Hatch?
No, Well, no, I could.
Well,
I wanted to
well
say
no,
that I really
this was the
appreciate
question that
Jamal's
I
point.
had. You know, because this to his point, if you all don't mind, because I'd like you all to answer. I'd like for all of you to answer this. It's like what people have missed about Bernie Sanders and Trump is that they did not have campaigns; they had movements. And to your point, Charlie Kirk understood that America would be transformed with movements. And that's what he was doing. Did you see that crowd that he had yesterday? He was on a 15 campus tour. I mean, it was like a festival. And and now Pastor Hatch, he's their martyr.
Yeah, and a creation literally of the Trump part of that movement. I mean, he's 31 when he's killed. He didn't go to college, but he made a career off of going to college campuses and literally saying the quiet part out loud. I mean, this is the way a lot of people think, which has to do with a lot of the Trumpian base of of white people who feel as if in this white lash moment that they will not be replaced, and that their privileges are not going to be taken away, and they're not going to live under some kind of a people of color majority, as the demographics put all of this pressure on the civic dialogue as well. But he is a creation. He didn't just come out of anywhere. Somebody considered him to be useful
Mm-hmm.
because he was groomed to say the what I call the quiet part out loud, which is part of what makes Trump so popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really a celebration of ignorance to some great degree
Mm-hmm.
that that reflects a large swath of the American electorate and American population. And so, yeah, it's just it's if you look at American history and we did the timeline, we have lived under a backlash much more than we have lived under seasons that we were looking at. And so we really have to prepare ourselves emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. It's a rough ride ahead.
But you know, and I don't think, Reverend Dr. Turner, that we have known just, I mean, and I would say this to you, Pastor Hatch, Reverend Dr. Hatch, and Reverend Boyd, just how much progress has been made and how hard it is to keep the progress.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
I met Reverend Dr. Turner when they were having the celebration in Tulsa
Mhm.
for the anniversary. But Reverend was nowhere on the menu. And it was Reverend Turner who said, no, 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 no. Reverend Jesse Jackson needs to be here. Reverend Hatch, Reverend Boyd.
yes,
That's why we went there because he sent for us.
Mhm.
He said, first of all, we wouldn't have had that celebration, that commemoration, if you will,
No,
without Reverend Turner standing in front of the government building holding up a sign by himself
that's right.
for months and then years, saying, wait a minute, what about Tulsa?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, Reverend Dr. Turner, I mean, I think there's some lessons, everybody, for us in this moment about the work that we have to do, because we keep saying we've made no progress. We made a lot of progress, but you must work to hold on to the progress.
You have to. You have to. Otherwise, they will take us backwards. You understand the things that your father fought for. Simple. Now we take for granted things such as the 1965 Voting Rights Act has been watered down. The pre-clearance clause, no
Mhm.
more. Right? Affirmative action. Whether we know it benefits white women more than anybody else, but now done away with. Right? DEI, which we know benefit white women more than anybody else, but now that's done away with. Critical race theory, a thing of the past, right? If we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behind. And so, if we don't hold the line, then we will be left behi if we don't hold the line. I read an article a few years back that said schools are as segregated today than they were before Brown versus Board of Education. If we don't hold the line, and that's why it's so important for me to elevate the legends, the living legends like your father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, elevate them today, because it is important what they help accomplish. Now we just trying to hold on. And that's sad, because we've stopped. That's why I advocate for reparations so fervently, because we just cannot rest our laurels on having the right to vote. We can't rest our laurels on having the first black president or the first black mayor, the first black governor. We have to continue to press and fight and be on the offense. Otherwise, we will have a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. We have a Pharaoh. We have a president who doesn't know Dr. King, who doesn't care about Dr. King, who doesn't care about Jesse Jackson. And that's what we have right now in the White House with his attack, even on the Smithsonian, attacking Black history, right? And that's all calculated and strategic. And so I feel that, though it's not my quote, it's a famous quote, those who don't learn from their past are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And we are looking at just trying to hold on to the things that our forefathers and mothers helped to fight for. It is now I think the 7th month of the Target fast, and they're still not moving. Right? They're losing billions of dollars every month. They're still not moving. We saw the same thing happen with the Montgomery bus boycott. The bus company in Montgomery lost a lot of money. They still didn't move until the Supreme Court got in and said, you must integrate your seating. Black folks are the only demographic where green doesn't allow. Where green is not as important. What does that mean? White people would rather lose money than do right by black folk. With everything else, whatever makes money makes sense, except when it comes to black people. They would rather lose money than deal with a black person. You see it with our athletes. They cancel us, great athletes. They would lose out on having a talent, Colin Kaepernick, if it means that white supremacy is upheld. And that's why it is so important for us to not rest on our laurels and not to think that business as usual comes when it comes to us, because this country has shown us repeatedly that when it comes to black people, we don't care if we lose money. I saw it in the South, growing up in Alabama. I saw poor whites vote for candidates whose tax policies were antithetical to their upward mobility. But they didn't care. You know why? Because these poor white folks knew that these candidates will also vote to keep black folks down. And in their eyes, it's okay if I'm held down as long as black folk are not brought up. So even to this day, in 2025, they vote for Republican principles and tax policies where they are removing taxes from the rich and also removing services that go to the poor. And their lives are miserable. You see it now with the big ugly bill, and they're still gonna vote for those same candidates. Why? Because they feel that those public services also benefit black folks, and they don't want that to be the case. So they would rather lose out personally, financially, than to see black folks be elevated.
I'm really trying to find out, where does we go from here? Because I see so many cracks here, Reverend Jamar Boyd. I think that everything that Reverend Dr. Turner and everything that Reverend Dr. Hatch, all these things that they've said is true. And I see us lifting up a young man who I don't know where he got his information from, who said that Dr. King was a bad guy. I'm just trying to find, and he is going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. We're flying our flags that have staff all around the country. And our children at these black colleges are being sheltered in place as we speak. afraid to move.
Mhm.
And I don't want to stoke fear, but I think that they should be cautious. But I wonder, in this environment, will they be protected? I mean, do we have police and military that will protect them? I mean, so what should we be telling your generation and those who are younger?
You know, the funny thing, it's a funny question you asked, because I talked to my brother last night, who's 24,
Hmm.
and I FaceTimed him just to see how he was doing. I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm playing 2K. I'm chilling." And it made me chuckle, because in my mind, I had to remember this is a generation that has grown up in an era of state-sanctioned violence every single day.
Hmm.
But now it is important to remind them the state-sanctioned violence that you've seen is different than what's coming. And so it is essential that they do have conversations, myself included, our generation included, with elders who bear that wisdom, who bear that experiential knowledge, but also understanding, as Audre Lorde said, you cannot use the master's tools to free yourself. You're going to have to use some of those old tactics, those old strategies, those old principles, and reimagine them for today and utilize them in a way that is subversive to the normative culture. I think the other thing is, and something that I tell the congregation at Kenwood every Sunday, all it takes is a remnant.
Hmm.
It doesn't take a whole lot of people. All it takes is a remnant. And at some point in time, you're going to have to draw your line of demarcation and be very unapologetic about it. And I think in this moment, there has to come a point in which lines of demarcation are drawn that may be hard, that may be difficult, that may sever some ties, but it's necessary for your survival. It just makes me think about Nehemiah. He gets this report that his homeland is destroyed. The walls of the temple are destroyed. The gates of the temple are destroyed. He's a cupbearer in the king's inner courts, and he has a decision to make. Do I consider the comfort that I have in the king's quarter and I can be mourning the state of my people? Or do I utilize my position to be subversive, to do something for my people? And that's the line of demarcation that people have to make a decision about. You have a decision to make. You can either choose to stay in your palace of proximity, which gives you levels of comfort, or you can utilize the proximity and the power that you do have to do some very subversive things. Get off of social media, stop posting every day, maybe post in the group chat, maybe organizing your churches, maybe go to brunch, do the subversive things. Do like my grandparents used to do. And Santita, we talk about this. Your mother and your father have reminded me. Find somebody's house, cook some pancakes, cook some bacon and some eggs, and have a long conversation, some long strategic conversation. Funny thing is, millennials do that.
Mhm.
We do that over brunch every weekend. But now the conversations need to change a little bit to identifying what are the lines of demarcations in which we are willing to engage for ourselves, for Gen Z. And I think about my 6-year-old godson, who's Gen Alpha. That's more who I think about is the Gen Alpha baby and my 88-year-old great grandmother who has Alzheimer's now,
Mm.
who helped raise me in the low country of South Carolina. Those Gullah Geechee people
Yeah, yeah.
come from. So that informs and reminds me I have no loyalty to the state of America. It's to my people. And I saw those low country people take nothing and make some Hoppin' John and some okra and tomatoes and rice and have a good life. So that informs the line of demarcation for me.
You know, I've got about 4 or 5 minutes left here, and I want to give them over to you because I think that we are, as they say, we've got to go back to front. Because the old ways do work, because it's the old folks who freed us. We're the ones who are losing the ground. And you about to say something, Reverend Dr. Turner? Well, you know, my question to you.
If I can just I think there's a theme that has come out this conversation has been very helpful to me personally. And I think that what I'm hearing is we have to reconnect the generations as a first order of business.
Yeah.
To make these generational connections and understand that our disconnection is really based on the market economy. Somebody else for their own purpose segment the generations into markets, but that's not who we are naturally. We are intergenerational, and I just think that that's a great path forward, as these pastors have just stated. We need to reconnect with the people who can help teach this generation how to fight, because that's what really is lying ahead of us. When we stop fighting, we stop progressing, and that's going to be a message that we're going to have to embrace moving forward as well. We lose ground when we fail to struggle. And so that's what we're going to have to go back into these communities and preach that gospel of interconnected, intergenerational struggle, and of course, reconnection with our spiritual depth.
Because the majority of the majority population have a minority mindset, and they fight that way. Yesterday, a martyr was created, and these
Yes.
people walked away, and they are walking away, and they're not walking away, they're marching, and they're going to take care of themselves. Yeah, I guess the minority mindset comes out of being from Europe, because they're a minority population in the world, and we've got to get back to not being minority as in small, but knowing that we've got to fight. What did she say in The Color Purple? All my life I've had to fight.
All's my life.
I've had to fight.
Kendrick Lamar, all's my life I've had to fight.
I've had to fight.
Coming out of public housing where I came from, all's my life.
Thank you.
And I'm used to it. The struggle.
Yeah.
I expect to. I've got a narrative coming through 8 years after Dr. King's assassination, coming through these PWIs, and watching the door close after the Bakke decision in 1978. The fact is, affirmative action may have lasted 6.5 years.
That's it.
And it's been recoiling ever since, so there was never this great period that we enjoyed freedoms. We have had to fight for everything that we've gotten, and we're going to have to fight to keep it. I went on these campuses and watched all the campuses I went on had a black house, a black person in high places, and a black studies program, because that's what the generation before me fought for. And then I watched all of those things taken away on these PWI campuses because the generations coming after failed to fight to keep it. And that's just, that's a microcosm of what we're facing now. Whatever we don't fight to keep, we're going to lose. And we have lost. And we have to fight to get it back.
And honor those, and honor the paths that got us all of these magnificent wins.
That's where your inspiration comes from. It's the only reason why you read the Bible, is inspired by old stories of what keeping the faith is all about, and about the ways to fight, beginning with your internal life, to fortify yourself for the fight.
I literally have 3 minutes left. 1 minute for each of you. For preachers, I know that's tough. But Reverend Jamar from the low country of South Carolina, I ain't mad at you. My family's from Greenville, but it's all South Carolina. It's all love. What do you want us to know today?
That there is no requirement for Black folk to assimilate. There's no requirement. And there is also, for Black Christians, no necessity for performative piety. So check yourself a little bit and realign yourself so that we can all do what's necessary, because it's going to take resistance, reimagining, and then building some new things in order to get through this moment.
Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch. And of course, if you want to hear some great preaching, you need to go see this praying young man of God at the Kenwood United Church of God, United Church of Christ. I'm so proud of this young man. We do not know, I don't know what to do. And he's a South Carolinian, so it's got a little soft spot in my heart because, I love these Southerners, and from South Carolina in particular. Oh, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch.
I am I'm
What?
inspired listening to these pastors and the way that they have really, I think, in this conversation given us a path forward by inspiring us to reconnect and the primary example that we have in our midst now is Reverend Jackson, your dad. It's a reason why he's had to be here for such a time as this. We needed this connection with one who was one of the last eyewitnesses to watch to witness Dr. King's assassination personally. We need this link from our past to go forward in our future. And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to build bridges in our families and generations in our community.
Reverend Dr. Robert Turner, Empowerment Temple, AME Temple in Baltimore, Maryland. Can't wait to see you in a few weeks.
Yes, indeed.
In Baltimore.
I really can't say enough how in times of darkness, children of the light should shine bright, even in dark times like this. And I'm humbled and I'm thankful and motivated to be amongst you and these fine preachers, pastors on this afternoon, this evening, and just challenge all of us to find something that we can do that we're passionate about and to work like it all depends on us and pray like it all depends on God. And on Monday, September 15th, remember those 4 little girls that were killed in church, and we all pastors. They were killed at church, and let's do something in their memory. Let's do something in their memory. They ought not be forgotten. We know the president won't say hardly anything about them, but it's incumbent upon us. If we can remember 9/11 on today, which I do, I remember 9/11.
Amen.
We've had terrorist attacks on us since we've been in this nation.
Mm-hmm.
And we ought not let them dictate who we celebrate or what we remember. So thank you for your time, and I pray that God blesses all of you.
Amen. And no one lifted a flag for the 4 little girls or the 5th girl who, though traumatized, survived.
That's right.
Think about that, everybody. Think about that. But you know what? I don't need someone to lift the flag for them. We should do that. What did my father say? You cannot ride to freedom in Pharaoh's chariot. Name your own heroes. How about that? And if you want to fight for America, and I hear you, people have said that, that Charlie Kirk was fighting for America, and I hear him, but the vision has to include everybody. Dr. King was not an awful guy. He was someone who tried to save America, but that's what he thought. And America is everybody, not just one body. And so think about that as I pray for his family today. I want us to pray for all families. I want us to pray for all Americans. If you love America, love Americans. And that means everybody who is here. And if you love them, feed them, clothe them, house them. Make sure that they can get well. So everybody, thank you. And I thank you, magnificent preachers, you magnificent men of God and woman of God, Renee Criswell, who had to leave. Thank you so much for being with us today on the Santita Jackson Show. It meant so much, and you've given me so much comfort in this moment because it's been a tough time because there's so much going on. But we can make it. Even though it's dark, we can make it. All you need is that little flicker of light. And that is what we tried to be for all of you today. God bless you, everybody. The Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio. Hope to see you on Keep Hope Alive this Sunday on
Peace.
iHeartRadio. That's right. God bless you, everybody. Have a great one.